Let me say a very special welcome tonight to all of you. Apologies, of course, for the late start. I guess you can put it down to the after effects of the Creole Festival. But it's good to have all of you with us tonight, and it's certainly great to be back with you on Real Talk. Of course, Real Talk happens every Monday night from 8 until 9 p.m. Tonight, we are very happy that we can be back with you once more as we discuss matters of national importance, as we discuss various issues that matter to all of us, not only here in Dominica, but of course across the globe, and also just paying very close attention to what is going on in our country. And of course, as we talk about what's going on in our country, none as critical or as important as the voter confirmation process that is on the way. It started on the 15th of October, so it's into its second week. We've had just about 2 weeks of voter confirmation, and we'll spend some time tonight on this particular topic as we discuss some of the problems that have been encountered, some of the concerns that have been expressed, and just talking around this particular issue there because it's very important for the future of our democracy. It's extremely important that we are able to maintain this level of democratization that we see within Dominica. And the world is watching us as we undertake this process of confirmation. I believe, as we said in the past, that it would have been a lot simpler and easier to do a re-registration of every single person who is qualified to vote. But the government of Dominica, for their own wisdom, decided that the better path was a path of confirmation. So we'll highlight some of the problems that we're having with this and some of the early concerns that we are getting out of that particular process. We'll also try our best to walk you through the voter registration process, voter confirmation process, and also as we go along with some of the concerns, quite frankly, that we have with respect to what is going on currently in Dominica. So that's coming up, and certainly we are looking forward to that. But before we do so, I've noticed seeing my partner so he may be having some difficulties signing in. I'm not sure, but our PRO is normally with me on Real Talk. I have not yet seen him, and I sincerely hope that he's able to make it tonight. But we know that you'll be waiting for us, and we could not keep you waiting any longer. So it's very important for us to be able to do this, and of course to just discuss some of the issues that we have with respect to the confirmation process. All right, but before we do, all right, we think that he has joined us, so we are going to see. So if you may be having some technical issues, I suspect. All right, so as soon as you have those cleared up, you can rejoin us. But let me just, as we begin tonight, we wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in Jamaica. For those of you who may not be aware, but Jamaica is facing a very big night tonight. It's a critical situation, catastrophic Category 5 Hurricane Melissa is approaching the island. It should make landfall tonight and spend several hours over the island of Jamaica. Winds are sustained of 175 miles per hour as it moves inland. And there is great concern tonight for the inhabitants of this country, great concerns for people in Montego Bay and Catherine and other areas in Negril. Great grave concern for the safety of the residents of Jamaica, because in addition to the howling 175 mile per hour winds, we can also expect there to be huge waves because the hurricane is coming on shore from the south. It's pushing up north, so it's going to push all of that water into the bays and so on of Jamaica. So we're expecting 15 to 20 mile high waves. in that part of Jamaica. And of grave concern is the area right around the eye. And that is going to be critical because where the eye makes landfall will be the area of greatest destruction. And so that's where the catastrophic destruction is being centered around the eye wall. And so where it makes connection becomes very, very important. All right, so we have to look at this and hope for the best for the people of Jamaica. Hope that they're able to survive this intact, but we can expect a lot of infrastructural damage in terms of homes, in terms of crops, in terms of communication highways and roads and so on, landslides, that kind of thing is expected. And also just a lot of rain is going to pour, an obscene amount of rain on Barbados and sorry, on Jamaica, and that is going to be a real issue. And so we continue to hope and pray that the night will pass well for the people of this country, for Jamaica. And so we want to send our support out to them and hope and pray that this night they'll pass it relatively well. Of course, here in Dominica, we have the experience of doing that as well. And we have so just joining us. So I realized you had some difficulties. I started the discussion. We were just discussing a little bit about the hurricane that's going to be impacting Barbados. I already introduced the topic for tonight, so we're just talking about the hurricane as you sorted out your own technical issues. So it's glad that you're able to be with us. Good night.
Oh, yes, certainly. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, yes, I did experience a few technical glitch, or some technical glitches. I mean, and it is now resolved at the beginning. But I thought then we have a lot of people on island, and the usage of the internet somehow probably would be affected. Maybe we have a large number of persons who have come from overseas living in the St. George Parish, and probably that could be one of the reasons why my line is so slow. But however, by the grace of God, I'm back. Yes, Doc, it is nice and refreshing after 3 days of pulsating rhythm. That was the World Creole Music Festival. And we saw the large crowds, particularly on Saturday night, Doc. And yes, it was refreshing. And a number of persons came in, Dominicans, non-nationals as well as nationals came in. And yes, we had a bang. I thought Saturday night was epic, although there were, a number of comments, not in the favor of the big artists of the night, quote unquote. That's supposed to have given us what we wanted. But all in all, people feel it was a well-deserving money. It's well spent. What do you have to say for that? I know yourself, you were at the park and you were present with a number of your friends and walking around, touching flesh again. Tell us about it, Doc.
Well, so I kind of indulged a little bit, not overindulged, but I indulged a little bit. I was able to attend all 3 nights, and it was good. I found particularly, I'm not a, I mean, not I would say I'm not a huge fan of Booyah. I'm still getting my ears tuned into it, if you know what I mean. But I thought last night was particularly good with WCK. Signal Band, but the individual artists, both Rio and Nice, I was clearly stunned. I mean, they performed in a manner that made you even like the genre. And I'm thinking even persons who probably are not too familiar with the genre after having listened last night will probably have fallen in love with it. I mean, they played really, really well. And it was really, really great. On the first night, I thought that the singer from Virgo, Roman Virgo. I thought he did really well, in terms of his performance. Michael Anderson was phenomenal as well last night, and Kassav, the usual,
Yes,
Kassav is
Kassav,
epic,
yeah.
epic. So I thought the all in all, it was great. Both Saturday and Friday nights we were spared. There was absolutely no rain at all. Last night there were a few sprinklers. I call them sprinklers. There's nothing sustained, nothing serious. So the weather cooperated very nicely, and the fans turned out. I mean, there were several thousand individuals in there. I thought the crowd on Friday night to me looked a little larger than the other nights. But I thought all in all it was really well put together, performance. I obviously listening to Vybz Kartel, and so I was not too impressed. That's not my style of music, and I thought it was a little bit on the raunchy side, a little bit, could have been a lot toned down, and I know that there were rules in place for our local artists to tone down their lyrics, keep it clean, but it seemed like that did not apply to the bigger artists, and I thought that was a mistake. It should have been a lot cleaner. It's a family friendly type, activity, and it should have been toned down a bit. But outside of that, it was good, and I thought that in terms of the persons who came to Dominica, I saw myself. I mean, just scores and scores of Antiguans, those from St. Lucia, French Islands were there in droves representing. Of course, most of them came to listen to Kassav, no doubt. But it was good. It was a good enough thing. And it's good to see that what was started by the United Workers' Party some 25 years ago continues, not 25, 30 years ago now. 97, so 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Continues to be a really good showing. One of the biggest tourism earners that we have to date is the World Creole Music Festival that has been sustained. And it was through the vision of individuals like Julius Timothy, who sadly passed away the week before the Creole Festival, that we have this spectacle that we saw this past weekend.
Yes, and indeed, and at that time too, though, when that was introduced as something that to enhance our culture, and it was termed by the Labour Party a bastardization of our culture. And obviously, it wasn't anything meant to take away from our independence celebration. And so far, after 28 years, we have been having our own independence celebration, unhindered by the World Creole Music Festival. And today, we can say that was one of the United Workers' Party legacies. And the government of the day, they almost killed it. They so wanted to kill it. They wanted to extract freeze away from it just to make people believe that, or to make a belief that it was actually, created under them. But nonetheless, I know God is good, and we only do good things for the country. And that is why, when we are given a chance to govern, we'll continue to do good things. But that's something I would like to say, and I think this Labour Party government is stretching the joke, Doc. I don't know if you may have heard, but it was brought to my attention by many persons who, of course, they were called by respective PAL reps around, respective PAL reps around the island for Creole Music Festival tickets. But one of the conditions to get a ticket was that they would have to reconfirm. I find that absurdly disrespectful. And, some person, they will call and they say, well, look, have you, and the first thing, yes, you can get a ticket, but have you been reconfirmed? What does that have to do with that? So it appears to me that even these activities, the government is actually the Labour Party, not no government, the Labour Party. It has hijacked every aspect of these countries' activities to get its way in, to manipulate and use for its political football. And I really think that there is no place for such behavior. And I think that is an overstretch now. You cannot be calling people for tickets, and then the first question you're asking them, have they been confirmed? And if they are not confirmed, then, I suspect they'll be subject to a no-show up in the ticket. But what do you make of this new development?
Well, it's very interesting, because we also heard that several individuals were actually selling the tickets on the black market, so to speak. Tickets were made available. Those free tickets were then turned around. People were selling them. One individual told me that he got one on Friday night for $50, so he was very happy because he paid $50 compared to the $200. Saturday night was $300. He got one for $100, and Sunday night he got a $50 one. So he was extremely happy because he was able to cut his costs to it. But that's because of the free ticket. I'm now hearing about this added dimension of having people pledge their desire to confirm. There's also a lot of concern about whether or not the government should be spending that kind of resource. I'm told up to $2.6 million on furnishing free tickets. But also it also shows, how much dire need this country is of work and good paying jobs. Because individuals obviously a lot of individuals were not able to afford the basically, if you were to come for every single night, you're talking about a total of some $700, to
700
come
plus.
for all 3 nights. Yeah. So that is a lot for a number of persons. Some people make $700 in an entire month. So that's a month's pay. So, but if you're in a society where people are working their good paying jobs, you don't have to subsidize these types of activities, because people will be able to put their hands in their pocket and take themselves out to an event like this. So that just shows we have a lot more work to do in this country. And that's why it's also for us as a political party, the United Workers Party Team Dominica, waiting, and not just waiting, but actively seeking to become the next government of this country. That's one of the reasons why we have placing so much emphasis on job creation, but not just job creation, but good jobs, good paying jobs, so that when the World Creole Music Festival rolls around, we don't have to be giving out free tickets. We'll have the tens of thousands of people in the National Stadium, because there'll be those individuals who have worked hard for their money and do not feel it's a strain to spend that amount of money to come into the park. And that's what we can offer. We certainly will not, I don't believe that this is a good way to spend taxpayer dollars. You subsidize things like agriculture, like manufacturing, where job creation is. That's where you should be subsidizing the government, not necessarily in CO. But I guess the government wants to make sure that the event appears to be a success, and it was by the number of persons who attended. But you want that at what cost, and so that is something that we have to be mindful of.
Well, yes, and just to make it more affordable for people. I mean, when this event came into fruition, I think I know for sure I benefited from subsidized tickets. At that time, tickets were put on sale for a period of time, so that could be affordable to Dominicans, which means that you got some incentive to buy a ticket very early as Dominicans, so that you have a period of cutoff point. You must have a cutoff point, but at least nowadays we just hear a day or 2 days in advance that day going to be that day, and then after it off. And some people may not have gotten their money so that they could purchase a ticket. But all in all, the government again put his hand again, and I don't know what caused the main artist on Saturday night, to say, well, thanks for the government, the Prime Minister, and whoever putting that together. And when they call the Prime Minister, there was no uproar. So again, we know that the Prime Minister is losing popularity, and no longer, not even artists now that can save him when they call his name or to things. I don't know who go tell him call the Prime Minister's office name, but I suspect Tommy Gans were more angry, and there was no big response when Vice Cartel, uttered those words. But anyway, that's none of our business. We know already that this Prime Minister is overdue in office, and the people are just waiting for the opportune time to get him out. And that is why we are seeking to have persons confirmed and to do it as speedily as possible, so that we know the period doesn't expire on anyone. But Doc, last week we explored part of this reconfirmation, and as we go along, we need to echo again strongly to the persons who have the electors on the present list to get confirmed, so that the requirements for confirmation should be such that they get prepared and to have themselves confirmed as they are on the register, to see who they really are, or to confirm, well, it is me who says that I'm Derek Glenroy Coffey, who resided at one time on 62 River Street. That's what we're all about. But Doc, we are hearing that there's some brushing up taking place with respect to enrollment officers. And what can you tell us that is happening? Because numerous complaints have been made with persons who have gone to reconfirmed, and we heard a gentleman exploding on what he experienced, and even in his presence, there were many attempts to fraudulently execute him from the list, not putting his right name, not putting his right surname. At one point, if he did not, revisit the list, the form, to say he wants to have a look at it to see whether or not everything was okay based on information that he gave, only through his knowledge, or just to find out that the information that his ID revealed and what he was saying to them never returned the form. What are you hearing, Doc? What is the update?
Well, we are getting various reports from various parts of the country. I've been very much engaged in that particular aspect of it. In fact, I had the occasion to speak to the electoral office last week about some of the concerns that we had. One of those concerns was the fact that it does appear as if a number of persons or the number of enrollment officers were taken directly as Labour Party operatives. So we raised some very strong objections to that. And in at least 2 cases, we have now been told that the electoral office has decommissioned individuals, because these individuals were previously, right before becoming enrollment officers, were directly working in the Labour Party offices in the constituencies. And I know one of those personally, because that was the one I called about to complain. That was in the Vegas constituency, more specifically in the village of Tebow, where you had an individual who she worked in the office of the Labour Party, what they call the Red Office, the constituency office of the Labour Party, and she was the chief enrollment officer in that constituency. And a number of persons were saying that they would not go into that place to enroll because this person is so closely tied into the Labour Party and they have no confidence in them. So we raised that with the electoral office. We have now been told that this individual may have been relieved of duties and somebody else appointed. So we are going to be confirming that in the next couple of days. But if that's the case, that's a good proactive move by the electoral office, because this is not a party operation. This should be an operation conducted by the electoral office, and it must always be seen to be free, fair, and not entangled in any kind of political intrigue. It should really be a free process, and persons must be made to feel comfortable. Having said that, we want to encourage every single Dominican who qualifies to confirm. And the way you qualify is to have had your name on the voters list, the list that was published in May of 2025. If your name appears in that list, then you qualify for the confirmation process. We encourage you to go ahead and get qualified, get confirmed. All right, get confirmed. That's very important, because if you do not get confirmed, you will not be able to vote. And I can tell you so the number of persons that I've had to tell over and over again that, yes, please go ahead and confirm. We are having some issues, obviously, with the means of identification that has been sought to confirm. And right now, as it stands, we only have the passports, the social security card, or the driver's license. The birth paper option has been removed, and we have made a very, very strong appeal to the electoral office to reinstate the birth paper as a means of confirmation. And the reason why we are pushing this is because we know we have this talk, and I say it's talk because it's really lofty about, well, in other countries, that's the way it's done. You must have a government-issued ID. Well, in most of the countries where they do this, you have a government-issued ID that is available to every single person. So there may be a national ID card that every single person have, and they can use that to confirm. They can use that to verify the confirmation. That's not the case in Dominica. What we have in Dominica is the use of the passport, the driver license, and the social security card. Even if those free forms of IDs, literally thousands of Dominicans do not have possession of those IDs, and that's what the problem is. So it's good to say, well, let's do this like every other country, but every other country provides means of identification upfront to everybody. It's open. All right. So it's not the same. And that's the reason why we have stressed repeatedly to the electoral office that they need to reinstate the birth certificate, because we believe that with the birth certificate, and bearing in mind which is very important to note, the birth certificate is still being used as the means of registration of new persons. It is still being used. All right. So if you are using the birth certificate to register, to get yourself on that list, why can't you use that same birth certificate to confirm that it is you? It makes no sense what is there. And the other thing that we're concerned about is the fact that you are using those free forms of ID, yet you are asking people to bring in a witness. There's no need for that. If you have a government issued ID, you don't need somebody to vouch again for you and say that you are that person that you are on those government IDs. That would have been done through the vetting process of government when you issued a passport or when they issued a social security card. So there's no real need. And the thing to note is that that idea of having someone vouch for you was part of the birth certificate process. The fact that you have removed it, you should have removed that condition as well, but it is still there. And so there were concerns about some of these issues. We have not seen this massive influx of persons wishing to register or to confirm. There are others. We got a complaint, and that's something I'm going to have to be following up with this week with the electoral office, because last week when we were on our radio program, we got a complaint from the people of the Roseau Valley that, notwithstanding, it was stated that there would be a confirmation center, which is the primary school in Mount Prosper, that they were now being told that they have to confirm in the village of Trafalgar. So those issues need to be ironed out. It is very important that every single village has their own confirmation process. It has to be in every village. It should not be at the constituency level. It must be at the village level, because you do not want to impose an undue cost on persons having to leave their villages to go to another village to confirm. All right. When during the voting period, they vote within their village. When they register within their village. So that should be accommodated under this process. And so there's a lot of unnecessary complications that we've seen that have bogged down the process, that has led to confusion, to concern, to persons expressing that they're not going to get involved. And all of that some of that blame can be put on the foot of the electoral office, because they made that change last minute. And so people are concerned, people are worried about it. And more importantly, a number of persons are saying that they do not have the money, including the $150, to get a new passport. If you're going to get a new passport, not only the $150 that you need, but you're talking about, the passport pictures, transportation to and from Roseau, the cost involved in that. It could easily go to $300-400 for some persons. And so that's a big cost, and others may not be able to move physically. There is the issue of, especially our elderly persons who have been always on the voters list, and now they're told to go and get a passport. A 90-something-year-old has to go and get a passport just to confirm his or her voting. That's not right, So those issues we have brought to the attention of the electoral office, and the hope is that something will be done, and that in the coming days we'll get some clarification and some redress. Basically, the electoral office addressing some of those really real concerns that have been raised.
Yes, it's very true. And I myself am making my own observations in Roseau Central. What we know for sure so far, mathematically, what I have seen, we have 7 centers, and we had 7 polling districts where we had at least 14 polling districts, but we had 7, at least between 5 to 6 registering officers just for new registration. And right now, we see now for the reconfirmation, what they have done is that they put MO1, MO2, MO3 at the electoral office. That's for persons who have to be confirmed, MO1, MO2, and MO3. And we have MO4, MO5, MO6, MO7, right? 7 polling districts. Four polling districts now can be done on Bath Road, where used to be Eve's Photo Shop. There's on Bath Road there. That's a small area. And now the electoral office will have to deal with 3 polling districts in the Roseau Central area. That is MO1, MO2, MO3. I find that funny because the electoral office would have a bigger staffing, and I don't know why they would have chosen to undertake 3 polling stations as opposed to 3 polling districts, as opposed to maybe take 5 and leave 2 outside. Because remember, you have close to 6,000 persons registered on our list in the Roseau Central area. And I mean, when in terms of voter turnout, you may not see these numbers, but for sure what is registered. And if you have MO4, MO5, MO6, and MO7 in the hands of the enrollment officers in just a small area, I think that is this high disproportionate way to go, because the electoral office has more capacity and they should be able to take more But that's just one concern, and many other concerns. I myself have not gone to the enrollment center yet to get confirmed. I'll be doing that sometime this week, and I'll be making my own observations, and I will see how things going. I will be doing a time motion assessment to see how much time it is taking with persons. And doc, like you and many other persons, have been getting calls, calling me and asking me for what is required to be reconfirmed. And I'm actually getting this information. In fact, they have arranged to get their IDs in order and to have somebody within the same polling district, sign on their behalf. So all this work is being done. People must always remember that we are here to support. We have always been supporting. No stone, no stone will be left unturned. We will be doing everything in our power to ensure that persons go to reconfirm, because we want this government out. If we do not act, then this government will not be out. But doc, and so we cannot overemphasize, doc, the importance of getting confirmed and to do take the heart, be encouraged to do so. And there's only one big benefit in getting out to reconfirm, is to get this government out, and we need to do that. If you do not, when the 1 day is expired, then the name would have been struck off the list if you would not have gotten confirmed in time. So we are urging you again to do what is important. So, doc, now that we have we are on this road of encouragement to ask persons to confirm, some of the immediate questions. In fact, I tell you that even labor rights themselves, or some persons who are pro-labor, they are saying they are fed up with this government trick, and most of them are not even going to confirm. And I'm saying to them, no, you have to confirm. If you are fed up with them, is to get them out. And some of them say, yes, it's true. They have to really get in there to get them out. And it appears to me that this government is just pulling the strings of manipulation all along the go. Look at here, in a list is already been generated for turkey distribution. And with that turkey distribution and ham distribution for Christmas, it will have to involve the own Labour Party criteria of part of it will be for you to go and reconfirm. So they're really playing and stretching the joke with this. And it's really not good news for that. But I want to say, doc, you have been advocating the United Workers' Party in Dominica. We have been advocating all corners of Dominica to have person reconfirmed. But also, doc, we are not over yet with this new registration. As the legislation of Electors Act suggests and stated and stipulates that persons, we should have continuous registration. And we have not seen this at all. There's no opening yet. We have not heard any pronouncements from the electoral office that they have resumed new registration. And it's a concern for those who have attained the age of 18 and willing to vote, and for those who are first-time voters. And people are concerned, and even that seems to me or appears to be disenfranchisement, and it appears to me as discriminatory. What is your take on that? Because it's a concern, doc, that the law states that continuous registration should be observed, and we have not been seen a move by the electoral office to at least have that. We have heard complaints about they do not have a new form which they await, and to have have a new software to install. What does that have to do with new registration?
Well, so it's more than a concern. It is actually a situation where this is a flagrant violation of the Act, which calls for continuous registration, and there is no reason why registration should not be going on even as we speak. And that's also the reason why the enrollment officers are separate from the registering officers. The idea being that the registering officers would continue their normal work. We have not been able to get new persons registered. And I can tell you, so there is this phenomenal interest among those who are just going to vote for the first time, those still in 18 this year who want to register, or those who may be 19, 20 and have not yet voted. They could not vote in the last election, but they can now vote. And there is that tremendous interest, yet they've been denied. And I can't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense to me that the registration of new persons have halted. And so we are again calling on the electoral office to open up the process for new entrants. The young people, they're eager to throw off this government. They're eager to make a change in this country. And that's where the change is going to come from. And I don't know if there is that idea or sense by the authorities that that is where the change is going to come from. So let's see how we can disenfranchise them. I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope that is just a delay in the process, but it needs to get going. It's too long. We need to get that started. We need to get the registration of the voters on the way, because the idea there is you want, when you go into the next election, you want the voters who have confirmed, who would have been on the voters list previously, and you also want the new voters who are just coming into the election process. And both of those groups must, the interests and the broader interests of democracy in Dominica must be guarded. So we are calling again very strongly on the electoral office to open up the new registrations. We need to get new persons registered. They need to be on that list. They need to exercise their franchise, and they need to be a part of this massive wave that we believe is being erected, or this massive wave that is coming on stream to take care of this government. And so, you know, the electoral office as an independent institution should do its work and ensure that that process starts. Now, that's one. The second thing, just very briefly, and I must say, so I've been surprised at the number of persons who are saying that they will not be a part of that process of confirmation. I've been honestly surprised by it, because you're talking about persons of all walks of life, you know, persons who I would never have expected to hear that from, persons who that you just assume automatically understands the process, know what they have to do. Yes, there are some issues with the birth certificate, there's some controversy, but we say, okay, you know, not that notwithstanding, I have a passport, I'll go ahead and confirm. These individuals are pushing back. They say no, they want nothing to do with it, with the process. And so I found myself like this past week spending a lot of time talking to a lot of people, encouraging them to be involved, get confirmed, and explain the rationale behind why that should be done. But at that stage, we should not be having to explain that to the Dominican public. They should understand why the confirmation process is taking place. That is how the voters list is going to be cleansed. We have complained repeatedly about a bloated voters list. This process is supposed to cleanse the voters list of persons who are dead, persons who otherwise should not be on the list, and those who quite frankly are not able to come back into Dominica to confirm. So if you're living overseas, for example, and you're not able to come to Dominica within this year, you will not have your name remain on the voters list. Your name will be removed. So that's an opportunity for persons who are really sincere, who really want to be part of the voting process in Dominica, to come down and to confirm. But they must do it physically, personally. And we're keeping a very close eye on that, because we know in the past we have had a situation where individuals have actually found their names have been registered for them, and they never made it into Dominica. We're hoping that none of those malpractices that there will continue. There were huge penalties for that kind of behavior. So if there's any enrollment officer who fraudulently confirms someone who does not physically come to Dominica, and that can be proven, this enrollment officer will go to jail. You know, as simple as that. So people need to understand that when they have this job that they were given is not to do the bidding of the Dominica Labour Party, even if they got the job because of the Labour Party. They are not there to do the job or the bidding of the Dominica Labour Party. There are very strict penalties in place for any fraudulent behavior on the part of enrollment officers. So I would encourage them to read the legislation, and if they err in any way, that they stand the chance of not only being fined but going to jail. So it's a very serious thing, and it must be taken in the seriousness which it deserves.
Yes, because some people are already agreeing with you that obviously there's no need for someone to stand for you when your ID is already revealing who you are. And after today, I went to the supermarket, I used my card, and all they asked me to present my ID. And when they match my face to the ID, they say, okay, well, I can give you my goods. And so that is just what he's saying. But yes, I'm happy about that as well, because, you know, it is obvious that people should do so. You cannot be telling me that I already have an ID, and what is it that you are doing? So we have to get serious. And we are asking those persons who have had bad experiences with respect to the enrollment officers that when you make complaints or you forward complaints to persons, you must also be willing to bear witness to your testimonies, because you are the ones who have been experiencing such, you know, bad practices by the enrollment officers. And when matters of such comes up, and we are taking matters to courts, so you have to have sworn affidavits to say, well, look, this is what is happening. We are saying to you, those who have been experiencing those problems, you must also be ready to stand witness to the many testimonies that you're giving on what has been transpiring. Don't leave us stranded, because is of these evidences that we're going to gather that we have to present to the court. And so, look, I'm very serious. In Roseau Central, they're not going to do what they want. I'm gathering, while they think I'm asleep, and many persons are asleep, we are really taking note of the malpractices that are happening. And any enrollment officer who is found breaching the Electoral Act or the Electors Act, under which is supposed to function, they will be dealt with accordingly. They will be brought to justice. There's no joke about that, because you cannot want to be doing dirty work and believe that is going to be acceptable. No, once you have violated the act, and there's rules, there are rules stated, and once there is violation of those rules, then obviously one has to stand in the court to say, well, look, whether or not I have or I have not violated the rules, and we're not going to take this lightly. It's time this country gets straight and stop using people, stop letting the politicians use you to dirty your character. You must tell them, no, if I'm given a job as an enrollment officer, I have to be fair to the system. Not only fair to the system, but I have to be true. We got to take an oath to stand right, to do things right. Why then should I break this oath to do things wrong? So I'm urging every enrollment officer who's now getting some temporary employment to be guided by the rules, read the act, and ensure that your performance is based on what the act empowers you to do, and is not what don't do the deeds of the politician. So I really want to urge us to do so. But also to we know again, and it's good to reiterate that notwithstanding the criteria set for registration with respect to the ID cards, and so there's also a form that we need to be filled up, and to be filled up properly with your right names, and we're asking persons prior to exiting the enrollment center, they must at least peruse their forms again, ask the enrollment officers, so that you could browse over again to see whether or not the information that you have provided is in fact the information that is, of course, written on the form. So we're asking you to be very vigilant, and to ensure that you relook at your form, and to ensure that things are done properly. But another concern somebody has, and I have it on my phone right now. Let me take it. See, it reads that, what about ASDOC? What about someone who is unable to read and write? Someone who is experiencing illiteracy and would not be able to read and write, and he or she goes in there. What about the risk of being manipulated by the enrollment officers? How do you go around this?
Well, that's one instance where the witness becomes important, because you would probably take with you someone who knows that you have that disability, if it could be called that, or you have that shortcoming that you're not able to read and write, and so you'd be able to have this person fill the form for you, and it does allow for you to sign with an X or if your thumbprint. So that's in place for persons to accommodate them. So it's just a matter of ensuring that you have someone whom you can trust, whom you can take into do that with you. Also I have there on the screen, because you talked about it earlier. I wanted to get the form 31.
Yes.
That I wanted to bring to the attention of the public, because this particular form is very important, and it's also the source of some controversy, and the controversy has to do with the fact that it is not the way the form is given, and we have it on the screen. I'm not sure if persons can see. Let me see if I can bring this a bit bigger.
Yes, you can project it a little bit higher.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, I'm seeing it because I've added lens, but I don't know if people.
Yes, but I'm not sure if. Let me see if hopefully our those viewers can actually
Our
view it.
viewers may be able to tell us.
Yes, can
Yeah.
view it. Okay, so let me just point the viewers to the bottom of the screen, which says the form 31, and that is the form that they're supposed to fill in when they go. So as soon as you get into the confirmation office, the enrollment officer is supposed to give you this form that you can either fill in, or if you're not comfortable filling it in, you can ask for help in filling it in. And it has to the chief registering officer your name in block. So you give your name of polling district number. If you're not sure, they will give you the polling district number in the constituency and whatever constituency that you are in. Hereby apply for confirmation of registration as an elector. The following information is submitted in connection with my application. And here's the information that is required. The city, town, or village, okay? So you'd put, obviously, where you are, city, town, or village. Then you have your last name, your middle name, first name, father's name, mother's name, marital status, whether single, married, divorced, then occupation, your date of birth, place of birth, social security number. I believe that this has been removed because not everyone has a social security number. So on the form, they do not have this still. Telephone number, work telephone number, nationality, post office date. And in fact, the concern was what should you put in where you have the city, town, village. And the enrollment officers have been instructed to have people put in their place that they appear on the list. So for example, if you have been overseas for the past 30 years, but you reside, you when you left Dominica, you resided in Grand Fond, you voted in Grand Fond. Now you would have to give your address as being Grand Fond, notwithstanding that you have not been back to Grand Fond in over 30 years. So you see the kind of complication that is there, because it does appear to me to be giving false information, and that is something that has been looked at as well. Is it giving false information if you say that your address is Grand Fond when you have absolutely no more ties to that village? You're now a resident in the United States or elsewhere in the Caribbean. Can you claim on a government form that you're going to swear by that you are a resident in Grand Fond? So that's a big issue that has to be sorted out by the electoral office, and clear guidance given that it does not contradict or is in conflict with the law. So I just wanted to bring that up to the attention of our listeners.
Yeah, so I was just, I'm happy that you brought it up, because I'm now getting a text and it reads, so, here it is, a very good program, by the way. Let me just say, very informative. But I'm not residing in New York, my new residence. But I lived on 73 River Street. That's where I was registered. I've voted about 3 times already, but I've had no interest in the last 3 cycles of elections in Dominica. But I'm also in Dominica as well. And I would like to confirm, where do I put my place of residence? Am I confirming that I was the one on the address in the past? Or do I have to put my current resident? And that is what you were talking about. So right away, you can answer that for the person right away.
Yes, so you would go in there, and the instructions we are told that the enrollment officers have is to just put it as, so where you have city and state, they'll put River Street, Roseau, Dominica. That would be your address that they would assign to you. Because what you're in fact doing is that you are confirming your name on the voters list as is. Because bear in mind, this new legislation, it has removed the residency criterion.
Yes.
Okay, the residency criterion was that if you reside, you had to reside within the jurisdiction that's within Dominica for at least 3 months within the 5-year period for your name to remain on the voters list.
That is now out.
That has been removed from the legislation. And that is the reason why, even if you have not voted in the past 3 elections, you're living overseas, you're still allowed to confirm your name on the voters list. So you're confirming the fact that you are you are Dominican, that is you that appeared on the list so many years ago. And also, so it's very important to note that they are not accepting foreign passports.
Right.
So if you are a Dominican, but you have given up your Dominican passport because you've now exchanged it for a US passport, you no longer have a Dominican passport. You no longer have a driver's license that is valid because you've been out of Dominica for all those years. Then it means that you, even if you're in Dominica now for Creole Festival and you want to confirm, you may not be able to do so because you do not have a Dominica passport. That's very important. Okay, so if you want to maintain your status on the voters list, you have to use a Dominican passport, a Dominican document, Dominican passport, Dominican social security card, or Dominican driver's license.
Right. So that person now, based on what you're saying, let's process it well. Person who lived in New York, voted 3 times, but voted in the past, but may have not voted in the last 3 election cycles, has a Dominican passport, and that person is John Brown, does have to say, well, look, I am John Brown, residing on 73 River Street, but where's my ID? And that person can now be confirmed that they have a valid Dominican passport, but not a passport outside of what is required for Dominica.
Yeah, that's very important. So again, that will rule out a number of persons that would have been away for a long time, probably have no more real interest in Dominica, giving up their passport, and they would not be able to get confirmed.
Right.
And if they want to get back on the voters list, they would need to satisfy the criterion for registration, which is you have to be residing in the jurisdiction or locally for at least 3 months before you ask to be registered.
But remember too now, and we want that to be clear too. We need some clarity here, because even if that person, once you're on the voters list or the current list, you cannot have a new registration. That is number one, because you're already there. If at all they had continuous thing, they could do a transfer. However, what you're saying there is correct, that once even if you are a person who never voted, retain as a Dominican, right? Have a Dominican passport, a Dominican ID, but you have not met residency requirement of 3 months, stay in there, you still cannot register.
That is correct. That is correct. So if someone, well, that will not happen now, but let's assume that the day after the year is up and they said, okay, the confirmation process is now closed, so that this individual's name is now off the register. They come to Dominica now, but they want to register as if they're a new voter.
Right.
They could only do so if they can prove that they've been in the island for 3 months.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that means that a significant number of persons will no longer appear on the voters list because of that stipulation.
Yes. And when there's an opportunity for the dead not to raise its head again, its ugly head in elections, because the reconfirmation process, all those who have died will not have the opportunity to raise their ugly head during elections. In fact, the ghost voter thing may well be part of the whole idea of the elimination, or at least one of the points to eliminate those who supposedly are ghost voters to come up. Well, look, I know a lot of what we are concerned about have been echoed, and someone said there, I went to Grand Bay office to confirm and there was closed, so I went back to the States without being able to confirm my information. With that being said, if I can't confirm, I won't be able to vote. Well, I think you just actually, I don't know, maybe that's a lost opportunity. If the person doesn't have time to get back.
Well, I was about to say, the person just needs to get back to Dominica.
Within, yes.
Yeah.
Just to get back within the confirmation process. That's okay. But if you intend to get back after the confirmation period has been expired and closed, then you will not have that chance. So you may still have a chance, but since it's early days yet. So yes, the education continues, and beside this form, we talk about somebody to actually in the same area to actually witness for you. So I have a lot of persons in MO5. They have asked me, so do I want to come with me when I go to reconfirm, because you're in police station, you know me. I have opted to go and sign on their behalf. We can know them as well. So I'll be doing some of these. I will not be undertaking any fraudulent actions with respect to confirmation. I'll be only following the law as stated under the Legislation of Electors Act. So we urge everyone that even MO2, and let's get it right, Doc. Let us clarify things tonight again. Let us say, I'm speaking for Roseau Central, if someone registers in MO2, that is their polling area, you would have to get somebody in MO2 to witness for them. Someone in MO5, that will get somebody in MO5 to witness for them. That is the person that would witness that, yes, this person, in fact, I know this person, and this person has obviously reside in the past in this area. Is it correct so far? So we know we're getting this clear.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct. And of course, that places an added burden, of course. You have to get somebody from within that area.
Yeah.
But it's all part of the process, that people have to endure, have to go through. But like I said, my disappointment has been just in the number of persons who are saying that they don't want to participate. I think there should have been a bigger interest in wanting to be a part of this.
Right.
Because after all, this is the opportunity that we have to cleanse the voters list. Because at the end of the day, the voters list is at the heart of any democracy. That is a list. Your name on that list means something. It gives the opportunity to vote for a government of your choice. And that's a very powerful burden. That's a very powerful thing that individuals can carry. And so it's something that we want done well. We want to respect the process, but at the same time, we want it to be done well and transparently. And more work needs to be done to improve on the transparency of that process. More work needs to be done. And the other concern that we've had, I think we spoke a little bit about it the last time, is the fact that the government issued individuals with a passport. And then, I believe a few years ago, probably in 2019, I think it was right around the pandemic, the government said that they had to change the passports of the country. They needed to issue new passports so that those passports would be machine readable. What that means is when you travel overseas, they can scan your passport right away and it reads it. The passports that we had up to now, you could not do that. They could not electronically read the passport. So now they made that change. So individuals had to go in and get new passports. Well, persons who were traveling obviously did that, but there were a number of persons who held on to their old passports. These passports are still valid. These passports are still being accepted in business places as a means of identifying you. Persons who want to withdraw money, say from Western Union or MoneyGram or at the bank, they accept those old passports, and rightly so. But these individuals are finding that when they go to the enrollment office to confirm, they are not being allowed to use a government-issued identification, which makes absolutely no sense to me, because you're not asking to travel with it. You're simply asking them to use it to say, well, yeah, that is me. And those passports are not expired. Yeah, you can't take it out of the country with you, but it should still be a valid document that can be used as long as it is not expired. And so that is something we've asked in the electoral office to look at. So we are hoping that when we have a new SRO, a new rule and order from the electoral office, it will reintroduce the birth certificates, and it will also clarify the rules a bit better for individuals in terms of what they can do.
It is interesting that you said so, because it's a valid government ID, and the mere fact that it is not, or the fact that it is not expired, whether or not it has all the features of the new passport or not, it is a valid government ID. I mean, at the time the government put restrictions for travel, that we can understand. But what we are dealing with is an internal situation or internal affairs of an electoral system. So the point is that should remain valid. So if now somebody takes the government to court, the person can easily win, because someone brought me a passport, that old passport they have, not the updated one, but that passport is valid until 2029. And until such time the person changes that passport to get a new one, The person is not violating any rule where when it come for a request of a valid ID, because it remains a valid ID. It is true that you cannot travel out of Dominica with it. Fair enough. But it is something that can be, I mean, so the electoral commission, the electoral office needs to review this thing and accept the old passport because it still remains a valid government ID. Look, someone is saying there, what you are doing when you confirm is that you are confirming that the info you gave at the registration is true and correct. Name, address, etc. So if, for instance, you once lived in Granby and registered in Granby, but now you live in Salisbury, if you are confirming that you are registered in Granby and live in Granby, then you are committing fraud, as you would be fraudulently confirming an address you no longer reside at. How do we approach that? I think that.
Okay, I think that's very important because bear in mind as well, so where you reside, has nothing to do with where you vote in Dominica.
Right.
Yeah. So, for example, an individual can reside. Let's take that example of Granby and Salisbury. That individual resides in Salisbury. Their name on the voter registration on the voter list them as voting in polling district V6 in Granby. Right. On election day, that individual leaves Salisbury and goes to Granby to vote.
Right.
Okay, so there is no issue that they're not breaking any rules, even if they leave. So the fact that you reside elsewhere within Dominica does not prevent you from voting in your constituency. You cannot vote in two constituencies. So you cannot vote in Granby and vote in Salisbury. You have a choice. If you want to change your votes from Granby to Salisbury, you're also allowed to do that. Okay, so when individuals go in to confirm their names, what they're doing, they're confirming their name on the list in that particular polling station. So the person is right. When you go to Granby to confirm, you confirm that you're Granby. What they're saying is that the person who comes to Granby to confirm should not say that they are residing in Granby on the form. They should say that their residence is in Salisbury.
Yes.
And I agree. Okay. And I see no reason why that should not be allowed, because the fact that you say that you're residing in Salisbury does not prevent you from confirming and remaining and voting in Granby. So there is no reason. The fraud really is if you say that you are residing in Granby when in fact you're residing in Salisbury.
And that goes for someone.
So there should be no problem in that. So, for example, someone returning from the diaspora should not be afraid to say that I reside in New York.
That's correct. That's
because under the new legislation, even if you reside in New York, on election day you can come and vote in Granby or in Roseau or in St. Joseph. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right. What you do not want to say on a form that you're going to take an oath over is that I'm residing currently in Salisbury, when in fact you're residing in New York. So that will actually be very clear to individuals. There is no penalty. There is nothing wrong in putting your current address as is, okay? Because it does not prevent you, under our current rules, it does not prevent you from voting in a constituency, even if you do not reside in that constituency.
Well, I'm happy this is well clarified, because I know for sure I reside in Baba State, but I'll be confirming that I am Derek Denver Coffee, who once resided on 60 River Street. But 60 River Street is not my address. Baba State is my address, but I'm confirming my name, which used to be on River Street, and that is what I will be doing.
Right, and then as a PAL rep of Roseau, seeking to the PAL rep of Roseau,
caretaker of Roseau, yes.
You basically you're going to be voting in Roseau Central.
In Roseau Central, I'm changing my voting area.
But you have been residing in Roseau South for a long time. Right?
Roseau, exactly. Good.
Yeah. So when you go to confirm, you should confirm that you are the voter, Glenroy Coffee, that appears in the voter list for Roseau Central.
Roseau Central, right.
Not to say that you're residing elsewhere. So that is fine. And that should have been so. It's a little bit baffling that the electoral office would instruct the enrollment officers to put the village or the place where this person is on the list as the current address. That is wrong.
That is wrong.
The fraud is.
Yeah, that's
And the fact that this came, and I'm saying this on the authority that I heard it from a commissioner who is part of the process. He indicated that is what is going on. So I take his word for it, that is what is going on. But if that's the case, that is wrong, because like I said, it does not prevent you from voting in that constituency, whether or not you reside physically in that constituency.
Well, Doc, I know I read the act, and I did not see, I don't know if that is correct, because if one was to challenge some of the list, let's say, if you generate a list, every quarter they should be generating a list of confirmed individuals, so that persons of interest who really want to probably look at names probably should be able to at least contest that. Actually, as the person exactly written there, someone who lives somewhere actually violating that they live somewhere else. They live in the constituency where they used to, whereas they live somewhere else. How do I know who want to contest that? I'm actually react to that. Is it that someone can, I didn't see any provision for that where I can object to that? There's no objection to that.
Well, there's no objection, and also we don't have access to the Form 51.
That's correct.
That is solely the property of the electoral office. So we don't have access unless, of course, there is some kind of court injunction that would ask the electoral office to make those records available. But for the most part, the information is with the electoral office. What we do see is the physical voters list with individuals by constituency. So,
yes, somebody saying again, let's highlight what I'm going to read what the person, a viewer, one of the viewers again, highlighted something. It says that I heard you, Doc. Please remember that in order to register, you have, and I mean, when person say register, you talk about new registration, you have to live in the constituency for a period of 3 months. That is a given. And then you are registered in that said constituency. Hence the reason why I think the removal of the time limit might be unconstitutional. When you go to register, you can't say that I want to live in Portsmouth for 3 months. That is true. You cannot predict that you're going to live in an area for 3 months. You should have lived in this area for 3 months so that you would be a first-time voter. Is that correct?
That's not. I'm trying to read exactly what the caller is, what the individual is saying. Say that if I want to live in Portsmouth for 3 months and request to be registered in Roseau. No, let's not confuse the registration
with confirmation
process.
Yeah, got it, right.
The registration process is very clear.
Right.
If now I've never registered before and I go into register as a new registrant, if I go to the Roseau office to register, I must prove that I have lived in Roseau Central for the past 3 months, and I get to be registered. I cannot go into the Roseau Central office to register and say I've been living in Kalidishi for the past 3 months and I want to register in Roseau. No, you are not able to do that.
Do that, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. That is different from the confirmation process. Your name is already on the list, but you have been residing elsewhere. So that is okay. It does not violate any rules.
Right.
You're residing elsewhere. And that's the reason why individuals are allowed to transfer the registration. Okay? But for registering for the very first time, you can only register if you have been residing in that constituency for the past 3 months. That rule is still in place. It is still in the act. It has not changed. It has not gone out. What has changed is the rule that allows you to be removed from the voters list if you do not reside in the constituency for at least 6 months within the 5-year period. That residency criteria, that is what has gone out the window for the confirmation, but it still applies if you're going to register, that you have to satisfy the 3 months. But that 3 months is in the constituency that you want to register for the very first time. Now, if after having registered, so I've lived in Roseau for the past 3 months, I come in as a new registrant, I register in Roseau, a month later, I move to Salisbury and an election is called. Okay? I am in Salisbury. I can ask for a transfer to Salisbury. Okay? Okay, I can ask that I be transferred because I no longer live in. When I registered, yes, I was in Roseau, but now I'm in Salisbury. I want to transfer my vote from Roseau to Salisbury. I would be allowed to do that. Okay, but so I just wanted to be very clear. So I hope that clarifies the information for the individual who was
Yes.
asking the question, also for others who may be concerned about some of those issues.
Yes, once I saw 3 months and registered, it applies to new registration or new registrants. That would
Yeah.
be a plus. So I think you clarify that well. The only thing is that I think there are still some teething issues, and I believe there should be a little bit of transparency when people say they confirm there and there. Somebody should know somebody of interest who probably, and I'm talking about political interest, but someone who wants to, it's just like when somebody is registered coming from the registration and they have claimed that they have lived in the constituency they want to vote for 3 months, then when the list is submitted, if when the other side or the persons of interest vetting the list says, no, John Brown really had not resided for 3 months in X constituency, you can contest it, and then the electoral office would have gone to do some verification. And once they found out that this individual has not been living in the area, then that name, his or her name, should be struck off the list. So I think that same thing that happening for new registration, there should be something in place for at least for confirmation. But given the situation, it's not. But I hope that that is why we are saying every bit of the political element should be wiped off from the from the selection of enrollment officers, because once you would have that kind of behavior, it will be too one-sided. So I'm happy that the electoral office is starting to take action with respect to enrollment officers who have been leaning with either political party not to be in there to do his or her dirty work for anyone. So, Doc, I know that our time has expired, but
There's one final comment, so I think that we need to address just before we end.
yes, I was just asking you for your closing remarks, though. Yes, and then you
Yeah, there's one thing that says
let's go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the same enrollment officers should be able to do the new registration as well. All right. So that individual is indicating that it should be the case where the enrollment officer also performs the function of registering officer. And the electoral office has said no, that they're keeping those two functions distinct and separate, so that the registering officers will continue to register new persons, they will handle transfers and so on. But the confirmation is handled by enrollment officers. The law is very clear about that. The law does not allow the enrollment officer to be a registering officer. Registering officers have a different function, a different role compared to enrollment officers. And so that's two different functions, two different activities, two different persons executing that function. And I think it's a good thing that they have not made it one and the same, because that could easily get confused.
Yes,
and also so I think that's important too, because I know that I received some concerns that in some constituencies the registering officers would not engage to be part of the enrollment process. So I also need to clarify it for that reason, that the enrollment officers are distinct and separate from the registering officers. And that's the reason why registering officers have not been made enrollment officers. And if there is a constituency where a registering officer is now an enrollment officer, then he can no longer be a registering officer. Okay?
Right.
Different functions, different roles, different individuals.
Yes, and not before we wind down finally. I think too, as we speak in Roseau Central has about 5 assistant registration officers in the respective strategic areas in Roseau. And they have nothing to do as we speak, because the electoral office is actually violating the Legislation of Electors Act by not doing continuous elections. And that's something I'm going to take up as an elector and someone who's the caretaker of Roseau Central. I will have to now put pen to paper to object, and I urge other persons to do the same, because you cannot now violate the new act passed in March, that continuous registration is spoken about, and you just literally just brush that aside and not even telling me you're waiting for a new form. A new form has nothing to do with that. So you're telling me when a new government is elected, because they change portfolio, that the Ministry of Agriculture should close down because they did not change the minister name on the prior form that they give out. No, 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 no. The function, the role and function of the Ministry of Agriculture continues. Service must be given. They must continue to do their work until such time that the new minister name is put on the agricultural form. So I don't see this is not a plausible excuse at all for the electoral office to just decide on its own to halt continuous registration. I mean, urging them to get back to that as soon as possible because
major violation of
major
the,
violation
of
of
the
the
legislation, and they need to tell us exactly why.
yeah. Why? Because if
they need to
it
come
is,
out, then the electoral office cannot be silent on this. I mean,
yeah,
that's a major violation. We have individuals as we speak who wants to register, so they want to ensure that they're in place to vote at the next election, and they should be allowed to. So what
yes,
if there's a snap election tomorrow? You're going to
and
disenfranchise
franchise.
hundreds of
Yeah.
new voters who need to be on the voters list.
The highest law of the land is the parliament. The electoral laws have been enacted. And you cannot tell me as a responsible electoral office. And the electoral commission should look into that as well and to instruct the chief elections officer to get into the business of registering persons, even if it means continuing on the old form. And when the new form comes in, they will do the transfer. And when the new software coming, they will do what they have to do. But new registration should continue. Ongoing registration will continue. And that's a violation. And that is enough proof for injuncting any process that is now going on. And any court will say that that is a violation. And we do not need a court to instruct the electoral office or electoral commission to continue registration. The law states it clearly, and it cannot be in violation of the law. So, Doc, just as you close, we wish to ask you again, and let me thank you for the good work that you do, continued education and so. But I sure you want to remind persons that it is important that we reconfirm so that we can get the action of getting that whole registration thing over with, confirmation thing over with to get this government. Oh, this is the weapon Dominicans back, and they're trying to frustrate the process to let people lose interest. But we are actually encouraging persons to go forward and to get reconfirmed.
Absolutely. So every chance I get, I do that, and I will want to do it again tonight to encourage persons on the voters list currently to get confirmed. It's very important that you do so. For now, the request is to have a government-issued ID, passport, social security card, driver's license. If you do not have one of those, try to get a copy of one of those. And as while we continue to fight with the electoral office to reinstate the birth certificate option, which is the one that most Dominicans would have ready and easy access to. Having said that, let me just say good night to everyone and thanks for listening. And again, let me appeal to our listeners and to all of Dominica to say a prayer for Jamaican brothers and sisters. It's going to be a difficult night for them. We are seeing a storm of unprecedented proportions, basically going ashore on Category 5, pushing in all of this tremendous amount of water. So water from the skies, water from the sea, mass flooding, most very likely, massive loss of infrastructure, and possible loss of life because that's a life-threatening storm. That's a major Category 5 storm. You're going to have flooding. A lot of persons normally die through flooding during those kinds of storms. So that's something that they have to look out for. They're taking the measures in a lot of the parishes there. They're evacuating whole communities. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered for low-lying areas, and rightly so, because those areas will flood. The storm is moving extremely slowly. It's going to stall over the island and just dump everything it has picked up over the past 3 to 4 weeks. It's going to be dumped onto that country. So we have to pray, a special prayer for Jamaica tonight, that they will come out good tomorrow morning. But it looks very unlikely. It's going to be tough. Going to be a tough night. And so we pray for safety and for guidance for this one. Good night, Dominica.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for everyone viewing. Thank you very much, and do have yourself a blessed night.